So in my latest video, I talked about the 2022 NASCAR winner predictions and about who I think is going to win in specific races or who I think has the best shot to win specific races. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about where I think those drivers are going to finish, how I think a specific driver is going to fare in a season, and just give my case for how I think a particular driver will do in 2022. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start off with 31st place. I'm really sad to say this, but I think it's going to be Corey Lajoie. Lajoie finished 29th in 2021, but I think this year there's going to be a lot more competitive cars. I think there's going to be a lot more drivers contending, and with the next-gen car, obviously that's going to be easier. I just can't see Spire Motorsports contending at all in that span. I think he might get one top 10. He was really good in the Spring Atlanta race. He actually set the fastest lap time several times in the Spring Atlanta race and honestly matched Kyle Larson's lap time, surprisingly, if you go back and look at the loop data. But I think that's probably the only place I could see him getting a top 10, and maybe other super speedways. Obviously, there's 6 super speedways now, I think. So there's more opportunity there, and Lajoie is really good. Daytona Summer comes to mind as a race where he could have won. But other than that, I just can't see Spire Motorsports taking the necessary steps in order to be the best team on the grid. So, moving on. In 30th place, I of course have Todd Gilliland. Look, when you put together his inexperience, the fact that he hasn't even been in the Xfinity Series, and that he's in an underfunded car, I just can't see Todd Gilliland doing well this season. I honestly can't see him doing better than Anthony Alfredo. I think there might be particular races where he was better than Anthony Alfredo, but he's probably just as underqualified to drive this 38 car as Anthony Alfredo. So I hope he does well this year, but I'm going to keep my expectations relatively low for Todd Gilliland's 2022 season. Let me know if you guys rate him higher or think that he's going to win Rookie of the Year potentially. Okay, next up is Cole Custer. Again, with the theme of drivers stepping down a little bit. I think the Stewart-Haas Racing is going to take a step up in one sense, but a step down in another sense. We'll talk about Kevin Harvick and Chase Briscoe in a little bit. I'll talk about Aric Almirola in a little bit, but I don't think that Cole Custer is going to take a step up. I want to see him do successful. He's a great driver. He's got a lot of talent behind the wheel. In the Xfinity Series, he impressed. He was the big 3, as they called it in 2019. He was a really good driver, and I think he's got a lot of talent, and if you put him in the right car at the right time, at the right tracks, I think he can be a good driver, and I think he can go out there and be a championship contending driver in the future. But is Cole Custer a championship contending driver right now? No, he's far from it. I think that Custer's one of the biggest unknowns, heading into 2022 because we didn't really see much out of him in 2021. But there really wasn't anything at all where I could see some hope for Cole Custer. Like mile and a halves was one I looked at in particular because he won Kentucky in 2020, hard track, and a mile and a half. He didn't even do well a mile and a half. So there's no hope for Cole Custer, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Cole Custer fans. I'm going to put him 29th. It's going to be a bad year, again, for Custer. Okay, next up in 28th is probably the first driver who's going to have a bad season relative to 2021. It's going to be Michael McDowell. Look, I know that, Michael McDowell's 2021 season was absolutely stellar. And if you take away the win, the Daytona 500 win, he would have finished 17th in the playoffs. He would have at least been a bubble driver in the playoffs. And who knows? I mean, he could have maybe pointed his way in on the playoffs even without that win. I mean, that's how good McDowell's 2021 season is. But unfortunately, I can't say the same for his 2022 season. There's, again, a number of different factors. The biggest one being there's more competitive teams. And in this, hypothetical universe, I have Front Row Motorsports just taking a step down and not really doing too well in 2022. I don't know what it is about the team. I think that, with RFK Racing, because they have an alliance with RFK Racing, I think with their changes that they're making on behind the scenes, I think that will affect Front Row Motorsports. And that I think that because of those changes, Front Row Motorsports will take a step down, because RFK Racing's not putting in as much focus. At least that's my reasoning. But I think that Michael McDowell will have a pretty bad season. I think he will have just an average front row motorsports season. I think that he will wipe off the Stardust from 2021 and just have a typical, ordinary backmarker 2022 year. So next up, in 27th, I have Austin Dillon. Now, yes, I have Austin Dillon having a terrible, terrible season. And you might be saying, well, why are you putting him so low? This is, cruelty against the Austin Dillon fan base. Yes, I know it is. But first of all, there's 26 other drivers that I think are going to do better than Austin Dillon. He's 27th for a reason. I don't think he's going to do nearly as well as he did in 2021. He nearly made the playoffs. Probably should have, made the playoffs. But I don't think he's going to be nearly that good. I think Austin Dillon's going to take a massive, massive step down. I don't think Richard Childress Racing necessarily is going to take a step down, but I think Austin Dillon will take a step down. I don't know why. I overestimated his abilities last year in 2021, and a lot of the drivers I overestimated, I'm underestimating this year, and then vice versa. Austin Dillon is a pretty good example. I had him winning a race at Richmond last year. He didn't win a race at Richmond. Didn't even contend in that race, I don't think. Could have won Michigan probably, but that's the only race really. He was irrelevant all year, and I think he's just only going to get worse. I have no hope for Austin Dillon. He's 27th. I'm calling it. So in 26th place, I have Aric Almirola. I alluded to him earlier when talking about Custer. Yeah, I have Almirola having just a pretty bad year. And I think that, this will be a season where we'll basically look at 2021 as taking away that win. It'll basically be a carbon cut copy of 2021 minus that win. I think you're still going to have the same bad luck. I don't know what's going to improve for Almirola. They're not changing the crew chief. They're not changing the spotter. They're changing the car, but I don't know what that's going to do for Almirola and his team. I don't see him doing too well. I think Almirola is going to regress in a significant way in 2022, and I think this will be perhaps the first year when he might start thinking about retirement. I'm not saying he's going to retire. I think he has a contract extension, but this might be the first year where those doubts about him continuing on racing might start to appear, and I think that his season is going to take a dip in performance across the board. He might have some good races. Who knows? Maybe he might run. Maybe he might run well at New Hampshire, but I just don't see it. I think Almirola is going to do pretty bad this year. Okay, next up is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Yep, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. beating an RCR car and two SHR cars. Would you look at that? Listen, I think JTG Daugherty going for the quality over quantity approach is going to pay dividends for that team. I think they are going to do really well in 2022. I mean, really well for JTG Daugherty standards. I think putting all their apples into the 47 basket is just going to help them. They obviously have a Hendrick Motorsports spotter too, Tab Boyd, who was William Byron's spotter. I don't know how much you want to factor in spotters into the whole chemistry of success, but it's certainly at least 1%, if not more. Spotters do play an important role. And, if you have an impatient spotter, you're probably going to have an impatient driver, and they're probably not going to focus nearly as much. So spotters are going to factor in a little bit, this year, but I think Stenhouse Jr. is just going to have a really good JTG Daugherty season. I don't think he's going to do better than the guys in front of him, in this list, and you'll see why. But I think he'll have just a pretty good JTG Daugherty year, and I think you can take away some goods, but also take away some negatives and turn them around for 2023 and beyond. So up the ladder in 24th place, reverse of the 24, 42, is Ty Dillon for Petty GMS Motorsports. Petty GMS Motorsports is a bit of an unknown, in my opinion. And a lot of people are saying, well, why not just look at, how Richard Petty Motorsports do? I think that would be a little bit ignorant because there's a lot of changes that still go on when a merger happens. It's not like the name change and that's it, So I don't know how well, Petty GMS Motorsports is going to do in 2022 and beyond. But I think that they're going to have a pretty good year. I think that they're going to have a solid year. I think 24th place is a generous position to put Ty Dillon in. I think Ty Dillon is fully capable of finishing 24th. I think he'll have some potentially good moments. This is about the, for people wondering what 24th place looks like, this is about the position I believe Ryan Newman finished last year. Maybe it wasn't Ryan Newman. Maybe it was Stenhouse. So kind of irrelevant, but still somewhat relevant. They can get top 20s. They can get top 15s. I think that's going to be where Petty GMS Motorsports is going to be in 2022. They might get some top 15s. They might get some top 20s. Maybe the occasional top 10, but that's about it. So this is kind of where my expectations are. So in 23rd place, I have Harrison Burton. I think Harrison Burton is going to have a pretty solid year. I think he's going to finish in the upper 20s. I think Harrison Burton's got a lot of talent, and a lot of people might hate me for this prediction and say, oh, Harrison Burton is going to be a perennial playoff contender of sorts. No, I think that's rating him a little bit too high. I think Harrison Burton, talent-wise, could do that in the future. Not 2022. Certainly not. In the future, sure. Come back in a year, and I might make that prediction, depending on how 2022 goes. And if it goes this way, I think that I will certainly make that prediction. Harrison Burton will take the baby steps to be a Cup Series superstar. Obviously, he only has 2 years of Xfinity Series racing in his back, and only has one win, which came at a track that, we don't even run at on a regular basis, and is going to have his final race this year. So Harrison Burton had just, looking at this as a career move, this is a bad career decision, but looking at how 2022 will go, I think this is where he's going to finish. Matt DiBenedetto had a lot of talent, and I think Matt DiBenedetto had the experience to take this car and make it a perennial playoff car. He did better than Paul Menard did in the car. Menard was a mid-25th, place car with Wood Brothers on a good weekend. I don't think Harrison Burton's going to be nearly that bad, but I don't think Harrison Burton's going to be nearly as good as Matt DiBenedetto was in this car. And that's just experience for Matt DiBenedetto and, age and rust on Paul Menard. He's youth, experience in the Xfinity Series, so upper 20s it is. So looking at 22nd place, I'm going to predict Erik Jones finishing in 22nd. Jones had a pretty good 2021 season, all things considered. He got a top 10 several times, actually, in 2021, which was surprising. Erik Jones took that Richard Petty Motorsports car in places where I don't think it should have been, and I was anticipating that the team would potentially make some changes heading into 2022, and they did. They are bringing in Dave Ellens, Noah Gregson's crew chief, and he's going to be the crew chief for Erik Jones. Dave Ellens can do wonders with young drivers, and I think he might be the driver. He might be the crew chief, not driver. He might be the crew chief to revitalize Richard Petty GMS Motorsports into a team that can go out there and compete with the Hendricks and the Gibbses and the Haas's. So I think it'll be a good move. I think it's a great move, and if they have the right chemistry and they click, then I think that this team is going to do some big things in the future, and Jones would want to stay here at PGMSM. But I think if this goes poorly, then they're going to have an awful year. But again, it's not going to go poorly in this prediction. It's obviously going to go quite successfully. In 21st place, I'm going to put Bubba Wallace. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, Bubba Wallace is going to have a bad season. I think he had an injury a while back, and that's going to hinder his abilities. I don't think that that's going to hinder his abilities. I don't think Bubba Wallace is going to win in 2022. Let's be honest to ourselves. I think he's going to do really well at restrictor plate tracks, though, and I think watching Bubba Wallace on a restrictor plate track is going to be something else in 2022. He's going to be right up there. He's going to contend. There might be some close moments where he could potentially win and doesn't, of course, but I don't think he's going to do nearly as well as Kurt Busch is going to do in that car. I think Kurt Busch is going to massively outperform Bubba Wallace, of course. Comparing Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace is like comparing apples to oranges. Kurt Busch is a veteran championship experience. He can turn bad teams into good teams, and good teams into better teams. Bubba Wallace just doesn't have that kind of talent, but he still is really talented, don't get me wrong. And I think Bubba Wallace will go out there and fight for glory in some races, but crash in other races. You know, he's going to finish 21st in this prediction. So I'm feeling pretty good about this, but I think he's going to be way out of playoff reach. I think that's going to be something that 23XI Racing team is not going to be looking at, you know, by season's end. So in 20th, I have another big unknown. It's Kaulig Racing, the number 31 of Justin Haley. That's going to get some time getting used to. Justin Haley coming into this season, a lot of people, I think really the only expectations a lot of people have is Justin Haley's going to do well on a restricted play track. And honestly, and some people even have predictions that he's going to win at a restricted play track. I don't think that's going to happen. There's too many different scenarios. And two things. First of all, you know, yes, he did win at Daytona in the Xfinity Series in 2021, but all the other restricted play tracks, Justin Haley was nowhere to be seen. You know, he played his cards right. Kaulig played their cards right at that Daytona race. Second of all, he has raced at restricted play tracks in the Cup Series. And, you know, yes, it was Spire, but you can still go out there and contend. He didn't. So I don't think he's going to do particularly bad at restricted play tracks, but I don't think he's going to do particularly good in the sense that he's going to go out there and play victory lane or bust. But I do think he's going to be a playoff contender. I think he's going to go out there and maybe, you know, he might sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? Especially if some of the guys that I have making the playoffs run bad, or some of the guys in front of him run bad, he could make the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. Kaulig Racing has shown speed. Justin Haley has experience. He's driven for Spire the last couple of years. So I think you combine that together and you get a 20th place season when it's all said and done. Now, the team I want everybody to keep their eyes on in 2022, and I know it might sound silly to keep their eyes on this team when, you know, 23XI Racing obviously has this veteran driver, when Kaulig Racing is making all these big changes, and Petty GMS is, well, Petty GMS, not Richard Petty Motorsports. But this is a team that I think a lot of people are really kind of shoving under the rug, and that's Trackhouse Racing. I think Trackhouse Racing is going to have a good 2022 season. I hope I don't look back at this prediction and laugh, but I think they're going to have a good season. Daniel Suarez showed speed, you know, and obviously if you watch my 2022 winners predictions, you know that I have him winning Bristol Dirt. Obviously, that's just for points. That's not really for anything else other than that. It's like winning a restricted play track. And then, of course, I have Ross Chastain winning at Darlington. So I think that they're going to get 2 wins for 2 of their drivers, 1 apiece. And I think they're going to have a good year. I think they're going to contend. And I think that Trackhouse Racing is going to take a step up. Remember, this is effectively Chip Ganassi Racing. So you're going to have to treat it like Chip Ganassi Racing. Of course, it'd be silly to, you know, treat it exactly like Chip Ganassi Racing. It's not just like Chip, you know. But they've got pretty much the same pit crew, pretty much the same, you know, people in charge. Okay, and they're a new team, you know, and so I think they're going to be a step below Chip Ganassi Racing, but even a step below from what Chip Ganassi Racing was already doing is basically 1 car missing the playoffs and both of their cars fighting for wins and contending. And I think that's exactly how 2022 will go, and that's exactly why I have Ross Chastain in 19th place. In 18th place, I have Chris Buescher. I think RFK Racing is going to elevate themselves in 2022. I think this is going to be a good year for RFK Racing. A lot of people are making the safe and honest prediction of, I don't know how RFK Racing will do. So I'm just going to say they're not going to win and they're not going to make the playoffs. And honestly, you know, that would be the safest prediction to make. But I'm obviously going with the more optimistic approach. The more optimistic approach is that they win a race and one of their cars make the playoffs. And the other car comes close to making the playoffs. And so I have Keselowski, and I'll talk about Keselowski in a few minutes. But I think Chris Buescher will come close. Chris Buescher showed speed like we've never seen before in 2021. We have never seen that kind of Chris Buescher. That Chris Buescher was the best Chris Buescher we have seen in his entire career, period. Even better than 2016. And 2016 was only better in the sense of winning. He nearly won Homestead. Had the sun not come down and the track still had a bunch of grip, then he probably would have won. But the sun did come down. He nearly, won several tracks last year. I mean, he was good at the road courses. He was really good at a lot of places. And so I think that predicting Chris Buescher nearly making the playoffs this season is not too far off. So the best of the rest champion, in my opinion, in my prediction, is going to be Tyler Reddick again in 2022. Listen, Reddick has got a ton of talent, and I feel like Tyler Reddick is just that close. He's oh so close. He's a pinch away from stardom. I don't know what he needs to achieve it. Maybe a new crew chief, maybe just a breakout season. I don't think Tyler Reddick will have a breakout. Well, I think Tyler Reddick will have a better season than 2021, but I don't think it'll be a breakout season in the sense that he'll go out there and, be like Kyle Larson, But I think that this year is still going to be a pretty good year. He's going to win a race. I am winning Homestead Miami. I've made that prediction now. It's going to be 2 years in a row that I made that prediction, and I hope it comes to fruition because Tyler Reddick is so good at Homestead Miami, and it's come oh so close, and I think he's going to win there. But that's about it. So with that being said, with Tyler Reddick winning a race, that means I'm going to have 18 different winners in 2022. And so a lot of you might say 13 to 14 different winners, 14 to 15 is the general consensus. 14 to 16 is the general consensus. I'm going with a mental season. 18 different winners in 2022. That means that every single driver that I am predicting will win a race in 2022 can win at least 2 races next season, which is crazy to think about, So I think it's going to be a big year. I think it's going to be a crazy year, and I think it's going to be one of the best NASCAR seasons we've ever seen in recent memory. I think there's going to be a lot of good races, and I think there's going to be a lot of good race winners and a lot of big celebrations. Scratch that. There's not 18 different winners. There's 19 different winners. I forgot about AJ Allmendinger at Kaulig Racing. At Coda, I predicted that. So, yeah, it's going to be an even crazier season. It's so crazy that I can't even count the amount of craziness that's going to be going down. So now we get into the playoff territory. Now, first caveat here is that every single driver that is in the playoffs has won a race, and I think that's going to happen. Kyle Busch, I obviously predicted him winning at Daytona. So heading into that Daytona race, there would be 15 drivers locked into the playoffs, and then it would just be a free-for-all for everybody else. And Kyle Busch would be on the bubble, and I'll talk about Kyle Busch in a second. But that would happen. Kyle Busch would win. I think that Kyle Busch would win at a restrictor plate track, and I'll get to my reasoning there in a second. And then I think we'll have all of the winners of the season effectively in the playoffs. And I think it'll be crazy. I think a lot of people will talk about that. So now we get into the first round. And then, of course, I have the guys that I had eliminated were Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, and Chase Briscoe. So I think Chase Briscoe is going to finish 16th. You look at the tracks in the playoffs, Darlington, Kansas, Bristol. I mean, all of those tracks just don't suit Chase Briscoe whatsoever. I think Vegas could be a good track for him. I think he won there in the Xfinity Series. He was good at mile and a half, so Homestead could be good. Roval, he's good at road courses. That's about it. That's the only tracks that I can really see him doing well. I think that Chase Briscoe, if he makes the playoffs, which I think he will, and even if he doesn't win at the Indianapolis road course, I think he'll get into the playoffs on merit because I think it's going to be a good year. I think that SHR, Kevin Harvick will step up his game. I think Briscoe will step up their game. I think these are the two drivers that will step up their game. And I think that Briscoe will have a good year and just put 2021 behind him. And I think people will finally realize that, okay, that was a car problem. That was an SHR problem, not a Briscoe problem. And I think he'll vindicate himself in 2022. So next up, in 15th place, I have Austin Cindric. And obviously this might seem a little bit weird to see a Penske car as a first-round exit. And yeah, of course. But this is a rookie as a first-round exit. I think Austin Cindric is going to be the best rookie we have seen in recent memory. I'm saying it right now. I think Austin Cindric will be the best rookie we have seen in modern era NASCAR. I think he'll go out there and win a race, be the first driver since Denny Hamlin as a rookie to win a race. And I think he will make the playoffs. Of course, that comes with winning, at least if you do it in the regular season. And so I think he'll still be a first-round exit. I mean, you look at those tracks. Darlington, Kansas, Bristol. I mean, come on. Chase Briscoe has never won at any one of those tracks, I don't think. So, yeah, it's not looking favorable for him. I mean, he could have won Bristol, but last year in the Xfinity Series. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good tracks for Austin Cindric. Road courses especially, super speedways. I think he's going to do solid at restricted play tracks. Mile and a half could be a bit of a struggle for him, but I think he'll figure it out by the time season ends. Short tracks, I think he'll do well at short tracks. I mean, it's really hard to do bad at a short track. It's really hard to do bad at a short track if you're in a Team Penske number 2 car, especially when there's a lot of parity at short tracks. Trying to think what an Achilles heel would be for him. I don't really see an Achilles heel. I mean, this is a Team Penske car. This is a flagship car for Team Penske. I don't really know how you could do bad, in this car. Like, if Austin Cindric misses the playoffs, doesn't win, then okay, yeah, it'll be a failure, and I'll be genuinely concerned. But I think that he'll at least, check one of those boxes. So I alluded to this driver who will finish 14th, Daniel Suarez. I have Daniel Suarez winning Bristol Dirt. If not Bristol Dirt, he'll win a race next season. Mark my words. Daniel Suarez showed the speed. Well, in the spring, he showed the speed, yes. I think as the season, winded to a halt, he had that crazy Camping World curse in the summer. Basically every time he had Camping World colors, something happened. Summer was awful for him. Fall, he got a little bit better, but he was pretty mid-pack. The spring, though, was really good. Daniel Suarez had a fiery start to the year. Fiery in the sense that he was doing really well at the start of the year. And I think if he can take that, little fraction of 2021 and apply that to a full season basis in 2022, I think Trackhouse Racing will do wonders. He's going to be keeping Travis Mack, I believe. I don't know if he's going to be keeping him or not. But yeah, he was really good at some places. A lot of people predicted him doing really well at road courses. I don't think he did really well at road courses, but I think that all of the things we expected Daniel Suarez to do in 2021 circumstantially didn't happen, but I think will happen in 2022. I have a good feeling about that. So in 13th place, I have Christopher Bell. Bell, obviously, I had Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, and Brad Keselowski eliminated in the round of 12. And so Christopher Bell, I think it'll just be 2021 all over again. Nothing in 2021 stood out to me. With Christopher Bell, he got that win, and taking away the fact that it was at the Daytona Road Course, I mean, he won a race. So take that as you will, how you may. But I think he will win another race this season. Richmond, I have him winning there. He's pretty good at Richmond. He won there in 2018 in the Xfinity Series in a pretty shocking race, I believe. That was kind of his playground in the Xfinity Series, so I think he'll do well there in 2022. And, a lot of people have some concern about Christopher Bell. People were genuinely concerned at the end of his season. It didn't look like the Christopher Bell we expected to do in a Joe Gibbs racing car. I think, give it some time and Christopher Bell will do well. Christopher Bell's not really in the same position that Erik Jones was in, meaning that there was a young gun waiting in the wings, ready to take his position, and it really wasn't a matter of, if his spot would be replaced, it was when. So there's no pressure for Christopher Bell to compete. He's fine. So I think he can just put all the distractions aside and run his season. And I think the JGR 20 will run its course and make the playoffs, make the round of 12, do well. Next up is Alex Bowman. He'll finish 12th in this predictions. in this prediction list. So, Alex Bowman, I don't think he'll have nearly as good of luck as he did in 2021. His luck was unmatched by anybody in the field. Anybody in recent memory, I feel like. I mean, that was just pure luck. I think the only race where you could argue that wasn't luck, it was Dover. He had raw speed at Dover. But you look at Richmond, I mean, that restart helped him. If that restart did not happen, Logano and Hamlin would have, pulled away. Best case scenario, they crash themselves out in the final corner and Bowman wins. That's the only likely scenario I could think of them not winning. Because they were battling hard. Dover, Hendrick Motorsports, they brought absolute monsters to the Monster Mile. They scared the Monster Mile. They scared Miles the Monster. At Pocono, we all know what happened, Kyle Larson tripped and fell into the wall, and Bowman won. And then you look at Martinsville, the hack incident, where Alex Bowman dove into the corner, and, that was its own issue. And honestly, I think Alex Bowman would have won had he not done that anyways. He was quick. He went from, 20th to 6th to 2nd, and then he had a fast car that day. So Bowman showed speed, but my question is how much of that was Hendrick Motorsports and how much of that was Alex Bowman? Let's be honest to ourselves. Even if that Dover race comes to mind, that was Hendrick Motorsports. I don't think that was Alex Bowman. I don't really even think that was Kyle Larson. I don't think that was Chase Elliott or William Byron. I think that was just Hendrick Motorsports being Hendrick Motorsports. 2021 was a great year for Hendrick Motorsports. And so the question I really have is how much of that was on the driver and how much of that was, on the car. William Byron, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson all showed me that it was the driver. Even when Hendrick Motorsports wasn't particularly good, they still went out there and they showed promise for 2022. Alex Bowman did not. It was fun seeing him win 4 races. It was fun seeing him, go out there and contend and bring Ally, into victory lane for the first time, bring the 48 number back into victory lane for the first time since Dover 2017. That was fun, but I believe that a lot of that was on the car. I have him winning a race next year, which I think is generous, all things considered. And even that win, my only reason was the fact that he finished 3rd and 4th at the Atlanta races. That's my only reason, Didn't even lead a lap at any of those tracks. I only have him winning Atlanta because I think he's going to win one race. And so I'm not even feeling good about that. If Alex Bowman goes winless in 2022, don't say I didn't warn you. But I think just putting him in the round of 12, even allowing him to be in the playoffs, even allowing him to win a race, I think that's beyond generous. Okay, so going back to the round of 16, we have Kyle Busch. He'll finish 11th. Of course, you might be asking, well, why? If you finish in, you got eliminated in the round of 16, why is he 11th? Of course, if you get eliminated, they look at, the full season standings, and you can finish higher than, the positions in which you were eliminated. That's how it works, and I have Kyle Busch doing that. I think it's going to be a bad year for Kyle Busch. I think he'll win a race. I have him winning Daytona, which, if you think about it, he was there at the Daytona summer races closer to the end. You look at all those summer races, and then somewhere or another, Kyle Busch was there. He was running up front. I think Kyle Busch can put himself in a position to do well, and I think that this will be a ridiculous year for Kyle Busch. I think this will be just a freak year for Kyle Busch, meaning he's going to do some surprising things. He's going to be surprisingly bad. He's going to win at a surprisingly odd track. He's just going to surprise us in odd, just some queer ways. But I think that Kyle Busch 2022 is not going to be the same. Kyle Busch post-2019 championship is just, he's not been the same. He's no longer, angry, which is good, for the morale of the field and probably for his fan base. But, I think that anger was a fire in him that, caused him to go out there and win races. He can still drive a car. He proved that in the Xfinity Series, and I think that's his only redeeming quality, that he can still drive a car, and he still proved that. But if he did not race in the Xfinity Series, I don't think there'd be any hope for Kyle Busch, if you ask me. M&M's is now leaving him. So you got sponsorship concerns for 2023. You know, you've already got 2023 silly season on the horizon thanks to M&Ms. So yeah, it's not looking good. On and off the track, Kyle Busch is just not looking good in 2022. I hope he can do well. I really do. But I've got no hope. We have the elder Busch brother, Kurt Busch, and yep, I think that Kurt Busch is going to finish ahead of Kyle Busch for once. I don't even remember the last time that's happened. You'd have to look back. But I think Kurt Busch is going to finish 10th. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he'll make the round of 12. And I think it'll just be a solid year for 23XI Racing. I think he will prove to the field, he will send a direct message to every single competitor that, hey, you know, this team owned by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, this isn't just a cash, influx of, dollar bills being chucked around with nothing to do. You know, this isn't just a cash corner of rich millionaires. This is an actual NASCAR team that can go out there and win a race on merit alone. And I don't think he'll win a restrictor plate track. Kurt Busch isn't even that good at restrictor plate tracks to begin with. But I think he'll win an actual real racetrack, not Atlanta. Pocono is what I have him winning at. Even that prediction I'm not confident in, but who knows? Who knows? But anyways, it'll be a good year for Kurt Busch and that entire 45 team. I think they'll surprise us in 2022. So next up is Brad Keselowski and his creation of a race team, RFK Racing. RFK Racing. A lot of people, and I talked about this when I was talking about Chris Buescher. A lot of people are not optimistic about RFK Racing, and I think that's really just, that's understandable. They're a very big unknown, and they could surprise us by going out there and being one of the best teams there ever was. Chris Buescher could go out there and win 8 races. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm going to keep my expectations. They're higher than most people's, but they're still relatively realistic. Like, Brad Keselowski winning a race out of a 36-race season. Can you honestly expect Brad Keselowski to not win a race? Sure, if it was a slow car, but and the reasoning is very solid. Keselowski in a Team Penske car didn't do well last year. There was a few races where Keselowski contended, but that's about it. And in a Team Penske car, in a car that I have Austin Cindric doing pretty well in. All things considered. So I can understand how people think that, Keselowski is going to mess us up, but I think that, this will be a fast start to glory for RFK Racing. I think this will be a good season for that team. 9th and 18th, respectively. I think that's pretty solid. So, eliminated from the round of 8, I've got Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano, and Kevin Harvick. Now, for Kevin Harvick, my reasoning that I made in my winners predictions was Martinsville. And that's pretty much straight up. But I think if you look beyond Martinsville, like Las Vegas, he was terrible at that place. Well, he finished like top 15 there, I think. Homestead, Miami, he wasn't that good. Martinsville, he's terrible at that place. So the round of 8 isn't shaping up to be good. But I think the round of 12 is shaping up to be good. Like Texas, it's a pretty good place for Kevin Harvick. Talladega, I mentioned that he's gotten, better in increments. Tiny increments. He's gotten better at restrictor plate tracks. And the Charlotte Roval, he could just, if he does well at those other 2 places, you don't really need to do anything at the Charlotte Roval. Just survive, really. That's the main thing. We saw the Roval last year. Larson nearly got eliminated. Martin Truex Jr. nearly got eliminated. So I think Harvick will make the round of 8, and I think that's a pretty good prediction. I don't think that's beyond, expectations. And after he gets eliminated in the round of 8, I think he'll finish 8th. I think that's a good year. 3 wins, 8th place finish in the points. That sounds like a pretty Kevin Harvick year to me. And a pretty Joey Logano year is just winning 1 race, Phoenix, early on in the year, and then sleeping for the rest of the season or doing whatever Joey Logano does best. So 7th place in the points. I don't think he's going to do nearly as bad as he did in the round of 8 last year. That race last year. We all know why Joey Logano did bad at Texas. It's because he wasn't running Shell Pennzoil colors. Of course. You know, I'm not superstitious. In all seriousness, yeah, that was a weird race. Like, Roush Yates engines, reliable engines that are, you know, esteemed as some of the best engines on the grid, some of the most powerful V8s on the grid, just blew up, just detonated for no particular reason. You know, so that was strange. And if that didn't happen, I think Joey Logano would have been close to making it into the championship four. You know, he ran well at Kansas. He ran well at Martinsville. Well, no, he didn't run well at Martinsville. He actually did terrible at Martinsville. What am I talking about? I don't think he'll do that bad. I think he will. He's good at Vegas. I mean, he's proved that. So I think he'll do well at Vegas. Homestead, I think he'll do well at Homestead. He's pretty good there too. And Martinsville, he's pretty good there. So I think he'll have some pretty close moments to making it into the championship four. But I obviously think he's going to make it past round of 16. I obviously think he's going to make it past round 12. I obviously think he's going to win a race. And I obviously think he's going to make the playoffs. I think those are all bare minimum expectations. I think get to the round of 8, then what? And that's the question that needs to be satisfied by the Team Penske crew. It's the year of the Laganos. You know, it's 2022. So this should be a good year. So Martin Truex Jr. fans will say, well, why are you putting him so low? This is a terrible year for our driver. When I put Martin Truex Jr. in 6th place with 1 win at a new track that he may or may not win at. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see Martin Truex Jr. winning at a place other than Gateway. You look at his wins last year. Phoenix was you know, a justified win. Martinsville was a justified win. But could there have been other cars that could have beaten him? Sure. And I think that Phoenix is definitely a track where, you know, he very well could win. And I think Martin Truex Jr. makes the championship four again, he could win the championship. And if he does, he's my championship pick. I think he'll win 2 championships. Just because of the fact that he's so good at Phoenix. But I don't see it. I don't see it. I can't see it. I can't see it. I can't see Martin Truex Jr. winning more than once. I can't see Martin Truex Jr. making it into the championship four. I still think he's going to have a good year. I mean, 6th place is a good season. For Martin Truex Jr.'s terms, that's a solid year. And it's basically like 2020 all over again. He finished 7th that year. Solid year. Just solid year. It's effectively 2020. He won a race and then was pretty consistent. I mean, he had a slew of seconds and thirds in August in 2020. But then, you know, just a solid year. And I think that'll be, again, I have this being a very competitive season. So that's another thing that you got to factor into this. This is going to be a very competitive season, hypothetically speaking. And so that leaves no room for a multi-time winner in Martin Truex Jr. At least it leaves more room for multi-time winners elsewhere. A lot of people have made this prediction. This is probably the general consensus, the universal, you know, vote for Kyle Larson's 2022 season is specifically what I predicted. 3 wins, bad for Kyle Larson standards, meaning he doesn't make it into the championship four, but he still finishes 5th. 5th. It's a good year. And I think a lot of drivers would, you know, kill for that kind of season. But it's not really good for Kyle Larson standards. I'm feeling pretty happy about this prediction. I mean, I don't think Kyle Larson is going to win the championship again. Let's be honest. Kyle Larson is the proverbial favorite to win the championship in 2022. It's not going to happen. In this modern era of NASCAR, it's like racing a talent. It's like trying to win Talladega, you know, 2 times in a row. Can it happen? Sure. There's always a possibility that it could happen. But will it happen? No. The season is basically, you know, a freak year. There's too many things that could go on. And there's too many things that I feel like are going to hinder Larson's abilities. You know, I don't think Kyle Larson is going to be a superstar like we saw in 2021. But I still think he's going to be really good. And I obviously have him having a really, really good start to the year. I mean, he's going to win 3 races in the spring. That's a really good start. Then he cools off in the summer, and then he just falls off a cliff in the fall. And speaking of cliffs, I think that Cliff Daniels is going to be, you know, pretty good. I think he's still going to be on top of it. I think the Picker is still going to be on top of it. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as magical as it was in 2021. And I know that's hard to believe, like Larson being human for once, not being a superhero like he is. But just look at Kevin Harvick. I mean, yeah, age, but Harvick in 2020 was, you know, something else. And then 2021, he was nothing else, you know? So, yeah, I think that this is a pretty good prediction. So then the championship war was Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Ryan Blaney. I think that Chase Elliott is going to finish 4th, William Byron finishes 3rd, Denny Hamlin finishes 2nd, and Ryan Blaney is your 2022 champion. So let's tackle each one of these individually. Chase Elliott, 4th. What? Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I know I'm going to get mercilessly attacked. And you're like, well, you predicted him winning like 7 races. Yeah, I overestimated Chase Elliott again. But it was just so tempting not to, you know? And honestly, Chase Elliott could have won 8 races. I know that was a far out there prediction that I made in 2020. 2020. I made that prediction in 2020 into 2021. That was a radical prediction, but Hendrick was good, so I predicted that. You know, Chevy was good. I predicted that. And I think Elliott will be the best driver on the grid in 2022. I don't think he will be second fiddle to Larson. I think he will be the best driver on the grid. But I think to say that Chase Elliott is going to win the championship in 2022, no, it's not going to happen. It won't happen. Chase Elliott is not going to win another championship for the near foreseeable future. He's not showed championship mentality. But I think he will in 2022. And if this prediction comes to fruition, then yes, Chase Elliott will win the 2023 title. But I think DI9 Nation is probably more upset at the fact that I have William Byron finishing higher. And you might say, oh, William Byron bias, you know, William Byron fan predicting William Byron finishing higher than my boy Chase Elliott. Yeah, I know. Listen, I've been hard on the man. I have been really hard on William Byron. I predicted him missing the playoffs and not winning a single cup race in 2021. I have been hard on William Byron in the past, and I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that. I've said to many people that, you know, William Byron's going to win the championship, and then I've thought long and hard about that. Is William Byron going to win the championship? No, that's way too high of a prediction. That's reaching out there. One can dream, and I can dream at least, but it's not going to happen. No matter how hard we try, William Byron fans. No matter how hard we dream, William Byron was good at Phoenix. Listen, he was good at Phoenix. Practice, qualifying, and the race. Like, William Byron was good. He was a Hendrick Motorsports guinea pig, you know, in that race. They were kind of poking him and saying, hey, do this, do that. But he was good. I mean, he was good in practice and qualifying. So, you put him in a championship, you know, scenario, Byron might surprise us all. And I think Byron will be the biggest surprise this year. But I think he will be the number 1 Hendrick driver this year. And am I overestimating William Byron this year on the opposite end of the spectrum, as I underestimated him last year? Yeah, probably, but who cares? This is my video. Then I have Denny Hamlin finishing 2nd. Yeah, I really am not making a lot of friends with a lot of fan bases today. Maybe I am, you know, with William Byron fans, maybe Blaney fans, and RFK Racing fans, but Joe Gibbs Racing fans, no, absolutely not. I'm not making any fans with them. I have Joe Gibbs Racing winning 5 races next season. 5 whole cup races next season. That is, that's harsh. That's harsh. Just saying that out loud, it probably makes me want to change my predictions, but no, we're going to stick with this. Yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing taking a step down in the winning column. I think Hamlin will come agonizingly close to winning the title in 2022. I think he'll be leading and leading and leading. The laps will wind down. 30 to go, 25 to go, 15 to go, 10 to go. Hamlin first, you know, Byron second, Elliott third, Blaney fourth. 2 laps to go. Down the backstretch, I can already see it. Denny Hamlin's leading. Caution comes out. You know, Chad Fincham has debris on the racetrack, and caution comes out. Restart happens. Chris Gabehart makes a really, really weird call. Brings Hamlin down to pit road. Nobody else comes down. Hands the title to Blaney. It's exactly how it's going to go. It's exactly how it's going to go. You know, I can already see it. Something strange, something totally out of left field is going to happen. Even if Denny Hamlin is leading off the final corner at Phoenix, okay, there'll be something that will happen, something supernatural is going to happen in the last 200 feet. You know, I don't know what it is, but the racing gods cease to see Hamlin hoisting that trophy. The thought horrifies them to that extent that they will, you know, have a divine, you know, interaction in the championship spirit. Okay, in all honesty, yeah, it's never gonna happen. You know, it's never gonna happen. You know, I predicted Denny Hamlin winning the title in 2020. But it's never gonna happen. Denny Hamlin winning the championship is just never gonna happen. No matter how hard, you know, you dream, Denny Hamlin fans, it's all a fantasy. It's all in your head. You know, that championship is all in your head. I'm sorry. So, Ryan Blaney, 2022 championship. How am I going to give a case for this? I actually really don't know how I'm going to give a case for this. Yeah, I said it's going to be a Ryan Blaney-esque championship. I mean, you know, half of the Hamlin thing was satirical, but I still think that the, you know, late race caution, you know, I still think a late race caution is going to ruin someone's championship. It might be Hamlin, it might be Byron. I hope it's not. It might be Elliott. Who knows? But I think it's going to ruin someone's championship. And I think Ryan Blaney is going to do a Ryan Blaney thing and is just going to sneak on by the leaders as they're battling. And the leaders are going to think they won the race, and then their spotters are going to tell them, hey, there's actually somebody in front of you. It was Ryan Blaney. He's a champion. You know, that's what Ryan Blaney does. He's a cloak and dagger-esque champion. He just, you know, puts on his black suit, black hoodie, goes out there with nothing to do and incognito fashion and wins the championship. That's Ryan Blaney in races, in a season, and I think that's how it's going to go. And in all honesty, you know, all jokes aside, I think that we have entered the era of young gun champions. I think Chase Elliott ushered in a new wave of champions. You got Chase Elliott winning the championship. You've got Larson winning the championship. I think William Byron is next in the queue, but I think that Ryan Blaney, I think that William Byron is inevitably going to be in the queue, but I think Ryan Blaney is next in the queue. So I think that Ryan Blaney is going to be your 2022 NASCAR champion. This is going to age horrible. This is going to age horribly. You know, watch Corey Lajoie might win the championship. This whole prediction might be backwards. You know, I might be doing this all wrong. I might be completely out of left field. And all of this might happen. None of this might happen. Some of this might happen. Who knows? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I'm doing my best and making plausible predictions to try and determine who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. And without further ado, this is it. So, till next time, this has been the news. I'll see you.